You've got social dialed in. Search is doing its thing. So why do your marketing results look the same as 6 months ago? That's because you're fishing in the same pond as everyone else. Podcast listeners are a different audience entirely. More engaged, harder to reach through traditional channels, and ready to act when someone they trust makes a recommendation. We're Acast, and we put them right in front of you. Browse thousands of the world's leading podcasts, book host reads or run your own ads, and track every conversion in real time. Same skills you already have, brand new results. Acast. Acast.com/advertise.
Welcome to the Neurodivergent Experience podcast, a podcast where we share the lived experiences of neurodivergent people to help create a better understanding for our community.
Join us every week as we bring you honest, raw, and inspiring conversations with specialists, advocates, and individuals who know exactly what it's like to live the neurodivergent experience.
I'm Jordan James, a neurodivergent specialist, father of neurodivergent children, husband to a neurodivergent wife, and author of The Autistic Experience, and I'm joined by my best friend.
I'm Simon Scott. I'm an autistic ADHD broadcaster, actor, and advocate. Join us as we journey into unravelling the neurodivergent experience.
Hello, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Experience. Everybody listening, you lovely, lovely people. Scotty, how
Hello.
are you?
I'm good. I still don't know if zinc is allergic. Well,
do people can be allergic to zinc?
Yeah, I'm still doing the research.
Quick update on the zinc.
Sorry if anybody that's like, what's going on? This was the last episode where I got fired for not being a zinc scientist.
Yeah, useless. Unbelievable. Anyway.
Hello,
Yeah. Well, I've let him back despite his lack of zinc knowledge.
And I have the logins to everything.
Yeah, plus he does all the editing. He has his uses. Plus he's very, very lovely.
Thank you.
But anyway, apart from that, zinc stuff, taking my zinc every day, working, it's still working. Dude, no existential crisis, feeling really good. The other day, I spent 5 hours in a gardens, just like this place called Nyman's that is near where I live. Dude, I took my camera and I was just walking around and I did some forest pictures and then I went into the gardens and I just sat, do you know what? I sat on a bench and for half an hour, I sat on this bench looking over the South Downs, beautiful scene, and there was a bush with some flowers in front of me, and it was just packed full of bees on this rhododendron bush. And I just got my long lens out, and I was sitting, and I was just taking pictures of bees. I don't know if I'm going to share them. I don't know if I'm going to edit them. I have no idea what I'm going to do with them. I haven't even taken them off my camera and put them onto my laptop. I haven't done it. I was just enjoying taking pictures of bees. I was like, how cool are bees?
The power of zinc.
Yeah. All I'm saying is I feel really, really good.
Oh, that's great.
I feel doubly as good because we have an amazing guest. Amazing.
Yeah, really, really excited. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. I've got Paul Stevenson here. He's a lived experience ambassador at Genius Within, which we'll learn more about. He's an international speaker, an author, an advocate for neurodivergence and inclusion, which is widely recognised for his work raising awareness and driving meaningful change for people living with Tourette syndrome, ADHD, and other neurodivergent conditions. And listen to this, guys. In 2025, Paul received the Ambassador Award from the European Society for the Study of Tourette Syndrome at their international conference in Athens, ooh la la. And in 2024, Paul was named in the Shaw Trust Disability Power 100 in recognition of his impact as a disability game changer, change maker. He's an absolute rock star, and if he was in top Trumps, he'd be right up there. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited, you know.
Oh, I'm pleased. That's awesome. So I'm very intrigued, Paul, about sort of you as a person. So before your diagnosis, and I'm sure a lot of people will relate to this, what was growing up like for you?
Pretty hectic. So, you know, I'm 63 this year, so I was born in the 60s. And as you know, ADHD, autism, Tourette syndrome are lifelong conditions. But back then, nobody had a name for it. Well, they did have a name, and it was naughty boy syndrome. where we were severely punished for manifestations of the conditions that we live with. So I've had a pretty chaotic education. And it's funny because I remember doing a talk to a bunch of parents and teachers, and this guy put his hand up and he says, when I were a lad, there were no such thing as, my dad had a belt and there were no such thing as ADHD. And everybody looked round at him as, in disgust. And I said, to be truthful, he's got a point, because you can't beat it out of a child, but you can beat it in to the point where we know we're different. And unbeknown to me, I was masking, and I masked all my school life. So in the last 3 years at high school, I was in what they call the remedial class and left with no qualifications. ADHD were very, very prevalent in my life. So, you just get on with things and you get punished. And because of that, you start carrying a lot of luggage, a lot of trauma. My working life was chaotic. I'd last maybe 18 months in a job. I never was out of work, but I just worked to earn money. I didn't work for any fulfillment. I realised that I'd got Tourette syndrome, and I experienced some PTSD, lost a friend. I won't go into detail because it's pretty triggering. And basically had a breakdown. And then another friend passed away. He took his life.
Oh, no.
And, at his funeral, I started making small phonic noises like, hey, hey, hey. My shoulders jumping. And I thought, this is me dealing with, the emotions of losing a friend. But within 3 weeks, I'd gone from making those small phonic noises to full-blown coprolalia, shouting, swearing, having tic attacks, dislocating my shoulders and my knees.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, what the heck is happening to me?
And that all started in that moment?
It's within 3 weeks of recognising major tics, if you know what I mean. So I was unaware that I had Tourette syndrome. So I went for a diagnosis. You don't fit the criteria, Paul. You're 46 years old. You've got to be under 18.
46?
And you've got to either have a phonic tic and a motor tic present. And have you had tics all your life? And I'm like, no. But then when I talked to my parents about it, they went, oh, yeah, you used to go, put your head back, coughing noises. So
that is the same as what mine were. Mine was like...
swallowing and head movement and shoulder movements.
And I would like do this all the time, throwing my head back.
And I think the thing is, though, back in the day, you rationalise. I had one where I threw my head back, but when I did it, I used to have hair, you see, that came down to about here. I used to throw my hair back at the same time. So that's how that tic explained.
That's exactly what I did. I had long bangs, like a centre parting, longer hair. And I would literally, just like you, I'd throw my hair back. And then obviously kids would then mock me for doing it because I thought I was like, hiding it, my tic. I was hiding behind, swiping my hair back. But because I was doing it so much, that obviously kids noticed that and then just took the piss out of me.
I mean, you stand out.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were tics. I really didn't know. Why do you do that? Because my nose is itching. And I always had a reason as to why I did certain things and clearing my throat.
Yeah, I just thought I'd develop bad habits.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Yeah, me
habits.
Too. That's what my parents used to call them, actually. They used to call it a habit.
Yeah.
Your little bunny nose when you go, it's his bunny nose. And it's not, it's a tic.
Yeah.
That's why I hold my hand over my face a lot of the time, Paul, because I just can't keep my face still. Yeah, it's constantly moving.
We do this. That's like pretty complex masking in the sense that, physically we're doing something to cover up. But the other stuff with the ADHD, my school reports said, do not be misled by Paul's high attainment level. He does nothing but daydream, class clown, inherently evil, just a naughty child.
Whoa.
And that report, I came second out of maybe 30 kids in a class. So you'd look at a report like that now and you'd think, right, so this pupil has done nothing but daydream, look out the window, joking and laughing all the time. How's he absorbed all that information? How's he able to put it down on paper. You would, wouldn't you? You'd be thinking,
Great point, Paul.
yeah. But back then it were like, you were dismissed. Remedial class, that's it. So I left school basically not properly being able to read and write. So I couldn't spell, and I was absolutely terrible at punctuation. But there were certain little things that shone through, little glimmers of my strengths that I've got with my neurodivergent brain. But all that didn't come until I got my diagnosis. So it wasn't until I found out what was wrong with me that I found out what was right with me, if you know what I mean.
Well put. Yeah. No, I had the same journey, you know. I when I was diagnosed, first of all, I was like, oh, that's a great answer. At least I understand, because, you know, that neurodivergent desperation need for like an answer. Yeah, like, why is this happening? Then I found out why, you know, I was always like, you know, the outsider and, you know, ostracized and stuff. And then I ended up hating it, thinking, okay, this is the reason for all the bad things. And then it was doing photography that helped me discover the positive side of neurodivergence, which is why I then went on to share my journey and do very similar to what you have done with like doing talks and obviously with this podcast, and I wrote a book and stuff. So yeah,
I think with myself, I didn't want to leave the house when my tics got that extreme. Very ridiculing condition, you know, like my arms would bring up right up to my head, and it'd have, like I said, dislocating my knees, making noises. I was embarrassed to leave the house. And our children at the time was 7 down to about, youngest was 6 months old, four children. And I didn't want them to be bullied. You know, oh, we've seen your beep beep of a dad downtown doing, you know, what's up with him? Has he got this wrong with him? So I pretty much like withdrew. I wanted answers. I wanted to understand. And that's where I reached out to John Davidson, because just at the time of my tics exploding from me, I Swear I Can't Help It aired in 2009. I'd seen it in the February, and I'm like, this is so funny. Oh, you know, wow, these guys are like comedy classics. And it's all right, my kids are still at home. Sorry about that. Hey, just totally throws me. Yeah, so, and then in the March, after Bill's funeral, when the tics had kicked off, I saw it again, and I looked at it with a different perspective as to, this is me. Wow. You know, so armed with all that information, went back, I got a diagnosis. And John was the first, well, Dottie actually was the first person I reached out to. And I just thought, I found kindred spirits, and I want answers. Why am I tics like this? And the answers that I got were not what I expected, really, because where do I go? I mean, so the diagnosis for a start, congratulations, Mr. Stevenson, you've got Tourette syndrome. There's the door. Go and live your life. How?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a minute, Paul, come back. I've got some medication for you. All right. And that's, is this going to be the rest of my life? And I didn't want it to be. I couldn't, I'd had a window cleaning round, and obviously due to the tics, I'd fallen a few times, and I couldn't do that anymore. So I was in a position where I was unemployed, feeling very, very low, and I thought, there's got to be something. So I put it to John. The funny story is that when we're doing talks together, he introduced me. He said, this is Paul, Paul's best mate. He used to stalk me. And I'm like, what? And he says, so the story is I would arrange to meet at Langley Community Centre, that's portrayed in the movie. And we're meeting at 12 o'clock. And I don't know if you guys will resonate or connect with this. I always like to get places very, very early to make sure nothing's wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So 10 o'clock, I'm at this community centre. And I thought, do you know what? Instead of John walking up to meet me up there, I'll go and pick him up, because I've seen where he lives. I've seen it on TV.
Yeah, no, that's a little bit stalky, dude.
That's such a neurodivergent way of doing it.
If I was meeting someone who I was like doing a photography lesson, they turned up at my house, I'd be like, Right.
So
Do you also know his breakfast order as
no,
well when you picked him up,
but
Paul?
anyway, the story goes. It's actually he's written it in the book, and he said this because I was maybe about 17, 18 stone. I used to work out quite a lot, and I'm knocking on his door, and he peered out behind his curtains. I didn't see, and he's thinking, "Who the heck is that 6 foot tall ballerina on steroids?" Because I'm like, "Way jumping about," and I'm going,
Yeah, there's a fridge freezer at the door.
John. And he's inside going, I'm not in. You know, ticking back to me. So anyway, I went up to the centre. I met him up there. He adds a little bit to the story. And I go, so I go, listen, folks, I didn't stalk him. It's just part of my neurodivergent brain. I thought, this works. I'll do this. And John goes, and he also stole some underpants off my washing line. And I went, you liar, I never did. And then as it finishes, our talk finishes, I said, by the way, they're still on sale on eBay if you're interested.
Brilliant.
But the underpants bit's all fabricated. Yeah. Obviously, underpants are fabricated because they're made out of fabric. But hey, boom. Yep, so I met John. I went off on a tangent then, didn't I?
You're in the right place,
yeah,
Paul, don't
right.
worry.
I was going to say that is literally this entire podcast.
This is welcome.
Tangents.
So I said to John, what do I do? And he said, you've got to embrace the condition. And I went, are you crazy? How can I embrace such a ridiculing condition? I said, I'm in agony. My knees dislocate. My shoulders do. I've got permanent neck injury, which I have now, obviously. At the time, it was relatively new, but I was still in a lot of pain. And I said, how do you embrace something like that? He said, well, you look for the positives. And I'm like, well, I'll be damned if there's any positives in this. And as time went on, I started to notice that the more I fought it, the worse it got. You can't fight Tourette syndrome because it's an internal struggle, and if you're angry, if you're upset, it just it gets worse. So I just thought, well, it's a lifelong condition. Can't do nothing about it. It's here. Let's try and make a future, and that future was being mentored by John, following him, driving him to places to do talks, inviting me to join in his talks. Working at the weekend retreats that we did. We had 2 a year, Easter and October, and initially it was just for adults, but we thought, if someone asked me, do you suffer from Tourette syndrome? I'll say, no, I don't suffer at all, but my friends do. My wife does. My mum does, and it's a family thing. So we thought we got this idea of getting families to come because that's who's involved. It doesn't just affect me as an individual, it's everybody around me. And we're talking to people, we're sharing techniques, strategies on how to get through things. At the time, people didn't believe in leg drop tics. Oh, there's no such thing. Tic attacks. Oh, no, they're just anger and rage. But because we're all talking together and sharing these experiences, we're able to break down a very complex neurological condition by using fundamental techniques to get through. So one of mine is that wherever my tic attack starts, I have to move myself away from that area because something's triggered it. Either, like I said before, it might be light, conflicting noise. I've got a designated safe place in the house that I've already planned out. And the strategy is that my wife will open the door for me, and as soon as these tic attacks are coming on, I'll make my way to my safe place. And I've been able to share that with parents to young people who have tic attacks as well, and they've been really successful. They tailor-make it to their own needs, but I think by helping and giving is great therapy for me. I get passionate about it. You probably can tell the more I talk about it, the less ticky I get. Because I've got that passion inside me. I want to make a difference. I don't want people to have to go through what we've experienced in life. It shouldn't be like that. You should enjoy your childhood. You should be getting an education. You shouldn't be excluded from things. And how can we change this? We can change it by using our lived experience along with professional medical experience to educate people. Because I think at this moment in time now, we've got a saturation of awareness. It's Awareness Month. Yay. Are you aware of Tourette syndrome? Yeah, I'm aware of Tourette.
Beware. It's out there.
Yeah.
Beware.
But do you know what Tourette syndrome is? Yeah, I know what Tourette syndrome is. Do you know how it works in someone's life? They shout, they swear, they make funny noises, blink their eyes. But do you know what's going on inside here? Do you know this young person's school day starts on Sunday, not on Monday morning, because they know what they're going to have to go through every day with this condition.
Oh God,
Oh
that
God,
went through me, Paul.
Oh, that went through me. As soon as you said that, I now have goosebumps and my tummy feels funny.
Wow.
You've just hit the net. Oh my God.
Do you know what? You've said so much there, Paul, that has resonated with me, you know, like discussing like lived experience and community and learning to live with your neurodivergence. Like that is what we try and do here. It's the whole reason that we did this podcast, is so that I could learn from Jordan in a similar way. I imagine you've learned so much from John. But recording those conversations and sharing them with people, it's like we do a talk every single week. Yeah. And that sense of community and finding things in common and sharing skills, it's like building your tribe, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It really is the way that I found healing.
Here's a tip for you. There's a podcast out there with fans waiting to be your next customer. They tune in every week, they trust the host, and that host wants to talk about brands like yours in their own words to their audience. The problem is, you just haven't been introduced yet. We're Acast, where that introduction happens. As the world's largest podcast marketplace, we let you browse shows, see who's listening, and book host-read sponsorships or run your own ads, all from one platform. Transparent pricing, real-time data, complete control. Start advertising on podcasts by visiting acast.com/advertise.
So I'd jump into the photography, how I came into photography. My wife bought me a camera. I used to paint. I used to be good at art. I've got a condition called essential tremors. And as I've got older, I can no longer paint. But Carol said, I know that you admire certain, landscape photography, wildlife photography. I'm a big fan of bees, which you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah, love a bee.
And, just at one with nature. So I went out with my camera and I took photographs, came back. They weren't very good. But I found out, because I'm not been a trained photographer, I made a lot of mistakes. And in making them mistakes, I ended up getting some really good photographs that look different. Have you photoshopped that? No, I haven't photoshopped it, actually. I'd had it in my pocket, and as it came out, the condensation put a mist over the lens. And you've got a fantastically looking...
It's like an artistic accident.
Yeah, and that's what ended up happening with my photography. I got the eye for the image. I didn't have the technological know-how. But then I noticed something. I thought, hang on a minute, I haven't ticked. I've been out all this time and I haven't ticked. Or maybe it's because I'm using my camera and it's like a mask. I'm hid behind it. People look, oh, he's a photographer. Rather than look over, what's that bloke doing? Why is he moving about? And I thought, it must be because it's a mask and I can hide behind it. But then when I got back home, editing my photographs, I had that same piece. I'm like, wow, what's the connection? I've got to find out. There must be a connection, because every daily activity, my tics are like that, bang, 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 trying to get out. But when I'm doing photography, I've just got complete silence. And I've never had this all my life. So I thought, what I'll do, I'll use this to my advantage. I'm in a holiday town. I thought I'll put on a photography display of all the images that I've took. And because I don't really think things through, and I've got ADHD, I thought, right, I found a venue, I'll do it there. The local library, not the place where people with Tourette's go to. Shh, oh no. But I attracted a lot of attention. People came to see it. I explained who I were. I said, listen, you might know me, you might have seen me, but over this period of time, my Tourette's has gone so bad. Please, don't be afraid. Don't think I'm drunk. If you've got any worries about me, come and talk to me. If you don't ask questions, you make assumptions. And I just want to start educating people about Tourette's syndrome. Through that came a newspaper article, because of the irony of Tourette's guy does a photography exhibition in a library. It's the worst place you can go. And then on the back of that, people started asking me, do you want to be in a documentary? So National Geographic contacted us. A lovely lady from Australia with a producer. and Dora, and we agreed to do it. So there were John, Chopper, and myself. And the idea behind the story was we were looking for a place where we could take young people camping, a place that would accept us for who we are and not judge us, because our previous experiences are like, we're going to have to ask you to leave. You know, you're making too much noise. You've upset people. So, yeah, we did that. We did that documentary. It went viral in America and on the continent.
Sure, what's the name of that?
Well, it was called Taboo, Tourette's.
Oh, when was that?
Well, in 2010, I think, 2010. Anyway, if you go online, you'll not find it under that name now because it's famous as 3 Men with Tourette's Go on Holiday. So,
I'll definitely check that out.
and,
that sounds really good.
So yeah, we got that.
Sorry, I just typed into my phone. I put 3 Men with, and the first thing it came up with Tourette's on holiday.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's
You're famous.
It's 11 million.
3 Men with Tourette's on holiday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's only 14 minutes long.
Well,
or is that just that one bit?
It was a good experience.
Sorry, I just ADHD.
That's all right. Let's play it through while we're on the and then I made another documentary called Employable Me. I don't know if you've heard of that. So the idea behind the story was that we'd find people who can't find employment because of neurological disability or difficulties, and we'll find them a job and stuff. And on that documentary, I met a lovely lady called Nancy Doyle, who's now my boss. And at the time, she was a psychologist, and she was doing a cognitive assessment, a positive one on me. And for the first time ever, I found out I'd got a lot of strengths with my neurodivergent brain, which was a surprise to me because basically it wasn't working properly. And that's why I've had a chaotic life. But to find out that I had strengths that could help me and push me further on was a proper epiphany, you know, like spatial awareness, visual thinker. I'd had glimmers of it. You know, I had a job once where I was working in a warehouse and we had to put stuff away, and the computer selected where we put the product, and there were like, you know, gallons of paints and stuff, pallets of paints. So an order, it'd get produced, it'd come into our warehouse, and the computer says, go to B12, there's a space there. So we'd run it in there, and they paid thousands for this system. And I'm like, it's not going to work. They went, why? I said, well, a quarter of the products that come in here are fast moving and they're in and out within a day. I said, so if this computer's selecting random spaces here, there and everywhere, you know, the man hours into doing that, it's not going to work. Why don't we just cordon off this section and make that for fast moving? And they're like, oh my days, we just paid thousands of pounds for it.
The out of the box thinking right there, Paul.
Yeah, I know exactly what that means.
So the glimmers were there, but I never paid any attention to them. But to find out all these things that Nancy was telling me, you know, like I were able to memorise people's mobile phone numbers without writing it down. And they say, "Are you writing it down?" I went, "No, it's all right." Yeah, so lots of things like that. Now, I've got to say that I couldn't get work. I tried and tried, I couldn't get it. And I think, you know, there was a lot of discrimination about my disability. And then when I think back about it, I think I put myself at the back of the queue. You know, who's going to want to employ somebody like me? But
yeah, that existential dread of just not believing in yourself.
And we've had a lifetime of doors closing in our faces. So this is
RSD.
Yeah,
man.
this is what we expect. But armed with these strengths and Nancy's encouragement, so the program was going down the path where I'd become a professional photographer, and yeah, that was a great storyline. But the photography was a passion. To actually go out there and take photographs for other people wasn't a passion.
Dude, I had exactly the same thing. Yeah, when I first started doing the photography and I started getting recognised for it and winning awards and stuff, and then people would then ask me to do photography for them. And when I would do it, I hated it. I hated it as a job. So people would ask me to do weddings and stuff, and I'd be like, I'm not interested. For a start, I'm a landscape photographer and a wildlife photographer. but I can do portrait. I mean, I can take pictures of anything, but I didn't enjoy it. So if you take the joy by making it a job, then it defeats the reason I did it in the first place, which was escaping reality, escaping the work. And I did photography for my mental health, and I had bad mental health because of my job. So I just carried on doing my job, and then when I had my spare time, just going out and doing photos, and then like playing around with like the post-processing and putting that artistic tint on things, and also traveling. It got me over my thing. I mean, I hate airports. I hate travel. I hate stuff like that. And because of that hyper focus of like, oh, I know I want to go and take a picture, that the photography gave me that hyper focus to get through really, really difficult moments or difficult things where my neurodivergence would be a disability, but because of my neurodivergent hyperfocus, that became an ability. Like, I think you mentioned the phrase glimmers.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It's the glimmers. It's what a wonderful word. It's like The Shining.
Well, they've always existed in, they've always been there as long as these, ADHD and Tourette syndrome's always been there. It's just that I wasn't aware of them. And when I became aware, I started using them to my advantage. So come to lockdown, everybody were like getting laid off, furloughed. I got employment. At the time of making the documentary, Nancy couldn't employ me, conflict of interest. But she later contacted me and said, do you fancy being an ambassador, a lived experience ambassador? She'd already said to me, you've got a way to articulate things. And I think that is one of my strengths, that I break very complex things down into very fundamental explanations. So please explain where a tic comes from. And it's like, right, okay. Well, your basal ganglia. And I'm like, nah, that's not going to work. I said, lottery machines on telly, when they used to shout them out, the balls would be bouncing about inside there. That guy, his job were, when that ball came up, and he didn't know which ball were coming up, but when it came up, he shouted it out. And I went, so that's a bit how my brain works, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. But when it does come out, like the lottery ball, I shout it out. And I just, it's probably inaccurate in a medical sense, but it's a great way to get a point across to people because they can relate to that. Oh, yeah, because he's really,
absolutely,
he's got no control, really, has he? And I went, no, other than the fact that, he has to shout it out. That's, and he can't control that because that's part of what he does. So, yeah, so I use that lived experience to my advantage. And I got quite a lot of imposter syndrome at first, which I'm going to do, And at Athens last year, when I got the award, I did an hour-long talk in front of medical professionals, doctors, consultants, researchers, and I'm talking to them about Tourette syndrome, and I'm like, ooh, this isn't going to work, but it did work because lived experience plays such a big part now in education. And I think I mentioned,
I think it's the most important part, because we do this thing called a hot topic, which every week we'll do like an extra show. It's like a little bit of news, and we have so often talked about this research on neurodivergence, or that research on ADHD, or that research on autism, and it's always, most of the time, correlation equals causation, which is not science. And we try and break it down to like the lived experience, and probably how most of these scientists or doctors are wrong about neurodivergence. They don't understand it, and it's always because they start their research from a negative. So they go, okay, this is autism. This autism is a bad thing. This autism is a broken brain. Now let's do research. And I'm like, that's so unscientific. It's so bad, because if you're going to research something, start with a blank, start with a neutral palette, And then you build from there. And it's because I had that neutral palette, I was then able to then go on and not see just the negative side of neurodivergence, but also see the positives like you have. And it's because of our lived experience. It's because we actually am neurodivergent. We are it. That's why we have a different perspective of it. And this is what a lot of medical professionals, they miserably fail because they're treating us like guinea pigs that they need to research on rather than people who they just need to understand.
I totally agree. I mean, the impression I got from the medical fraternity was that, for a start, they told me it was a rare condition. I've never seen anybody with Tourette's this bad, who's got Tourette's this bad like you. And the reality was that he had very little experience of, diagnosing people with Tourette's syndrome. And I wasn't the worst case ever. Yeah. But that isolated me. That made me feel bad. So I was looking for a lead there. What's a lead? And I felt my whole experience. I'm not anti-medication by any means, but the antipsychotics that I was prescribed for the first 10 years that I'd put my trust in, the medical fraternity, led me to the understanding that all they wanted to do was shut me up. They couldn't see beyond the tics. They couldn't see the individual. They couldn't see the creativity. They couldn't see that with this brain, whilst it might have a few faults, it's functioning just a different way. It's wired differently, and it can achieve such a lot. All they could see were the tics. Right, let's shut him up. Let's put him on antipsychotics or put on lots and lots of weight. Dopamine antagonist, is that the word? Where it fights against the dopamine, stops the dopamine. And I didn't need that. Obviously with my ADHD, you didn't need that.
You need all the help you can get.
Yeah, you need more dopamine, not less.
And I went, stop trying to silence me. What is wrong with my tics? And I find this when I've been advocating for young people in school. One example, a young guy, I'll not mention his name, but he was struggling. His tics had increased. He was coming up to his exams. They told him that he weren't going to finish his exams. They were telling him what he couldn't do and what wasn't going to happen.
Nothing worse.
Instead of saying, let's find a way. So the day that I went into school to advocate in front of the teachers, the guy had been excluded. Why have you excluded him? Well, he said it was a tic. He told Mr. Harrison to F off. Mr. Harrison said, "What did you say?" And he went, F off, F off, F off. And he said the fact that he repeated it that many times means that it wasn't a tic. It was reinforcing. And I went, God. Right. So Tourette's is very, very encourageable. And if you ask somebody what you just tick, the tick will probably repeat it again. It's called echolalia, and that's what that is. And they're like, oh, right. So I said, what is the issue? What issue do you have with this young man? Because I've met his mum and his dad. He's got a part-time job. He's a grafter. What's the issue at school? Well, it's not so much the work. He can do the work, but he's a disruptive influence in the class. And I went, oh, right. So he's wrecking the ambience or the quietness in the class. And as I was talking to him, I dragged my chair that was by the side of me, and I dragged it to my side and I leant on it. And it made a juddering noise, as it went across the floor. And the glass of water that I had, I gulped that down and then banged it down on the desk. And then I went, oh, sorry about that. And nobody said anything. I said, you know why I'm apologising? They went, why? I said, because of the disturbances I've made. But they're not disturbances to you because you know the source of them. You knew that were a chair being pulled across. You knew that were a door shutting. You knew that were a glass being put down. There were no intent, no malice, and you know the source of it. So all we have to do now is know that tics aren't intentional. There's no malice there. There's no intent to upset or offend. And once you get that in your head and that understanding, then the tics are no longer a problem. And it's a win-win because the pressure is off the young person now that no one's going to react to my tics. I don't have to try and... So that's the thing. Forget about the tics, right? Leave that to us to deal with. What we want from you is support. We want understanding and we want acceptance because there's so much more to me than my Tourette's.
Yeah, I absolutely think that there is something about society when it comes to swearing.
Fuck off.
That
There we go.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why people are so triggered by swearing in my head, because it's just words.
Yeah.
And if I was to replace fuck with smeg,
Yeah.
or shit with biscuit,
Yeah.
but the intent was still a swear word, and it was like, oh, bloody biscuits and a
Yeah.
smegging arse, people would still say, oh, you are swearing. I literally had done this when I was like talking to someone. I said, oh, smeg off. And they went, well, no need to swear at me. I went, what? Smeg is the name of a fridge, by the way, and it's very famous in Red Dwarf.
Mhm.
And that's what Red Dwarf did. They literally replaced the word fuck with smeg deliberately to make it more family friendly, so
Smegma.
that people couldn't say, exactly.
Yeah.
So people couldn't do the thing where they're like, oh, no, cancel that show because it has too much swearing. Smeg was totally reasonable. But literally, I said smeg to my sister once and she told me that was a swear word. And to me, it's just words, because I think that if I was ticking and I was saying or doing what you were doing, like making a dog barking noise or anything like that, I think people are just like, oh, that's Tourette's. But there's something about people when Tourette's ends up being a swear word towards someone, that's then the problem. And I'm like, oh my God. One, like you said, it is not intentional whatsoever. And two, it's just a fucking word. Get over it.
I think, like, I mean, obviously the percentage of people that have coprolalia is the minority in the Tourette's community. But hey, that mechanism's in place, I believe, with all of us, the potential for it to increase and decrease. And that's the thing, you know, that's why you've got to find your peace. That's why you've got to find a way to live with Tourette syndrome. That's why when people start accepting that the barking noise, the whistling, the throat clearing is just part of the condition, just forget it. Let us get on with life.
Just move on.
Things are going to improve. And I, like I said before, I felt like they wanted to shut me up, but I needed to find inner peace, you know, and then to find out that I've got ADHD as well. So that diagnosis didn't come through till I was 60.
Wow.
Whoa.
Why do you want a diagnosis?
That's a late diagnosis.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's funny because that was the same thing then. You know, I went through all the questions, different things, and the guy said, you're the most ADHD person that I've ever met. And I'm like, please stop telling your
I've got competition.
patients. Yeah, but stop telling your patients that this is the worst case, because it's not. It doesn't do us any good.
Makes a mountain out of the molehill, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Isolates us even more, makes us withdraw.
It's almost like they don't know who we are, Paul, and how to speak to us.
No, exactly.
Funny that.
I mean, and that diagnosis were pretty powerful as well, because it gave me the ability, like I'd done with Tourette syndrome, to educate myself about it, read up a lot about it, spoke to a lot of other people. But the healing started to come into place with the ADHD diagnosis. I was able to map back my life at past transgressions and start to forgive myself for who I thought wasn't a very nice person. And issues with addiction when I was younger, finding out I was pre-programmed to not succeed in certain areas, you know, in a neurotypical world. And that was like balm on my soul, honestly. It was so, well, it helped me carry on, you know. And at 60-year-old, what's the difference? And I'm like, well, I need to find solutions. I need to find answers. And then I need solutions. I need strategies. I've struggled with this all my life, and I want to know that it's not my fault. Do you get me?
Oh, yeah.
I find that question such an odd question, that like, oh, you're in your 60s. Why does it matter? You've got this far. And I'm like, mate, he's not dead yet.
No.
Jesus. Like 60 isn't dead.
Yeah.
My God. So you want him to spend the next 20 or 30 years, you know, fingers crossed, still not understanding himself, still not receiving, you know, I don't know if you're on methylphenidate, I know it works for me, but even if, you know, whatever works for you. But at the end of the day, just because someone's 60, I mean, they're freaking done for their life.
Written
you know,
off.
God damn it. People suck, man. Seriously.
Just go and struggle for the rest of your life. But
screw you, old man.
Yeah.
That's what I get from most kids.
That's it. You've no teeth. Hey, roof.
Yeah, exactly.
That were pretty good. We've covered quite a lot, haven't we, really, in just off your first question.
No, don't worry. Should we take a little bit of a break? Because I would love to get into Genius Within. I'd like to know a little bit about your book. And of course, you had a starring role in I Swear as well. So we'll get into that. You're listening to the Neurodivergent Experience. Stay with us. We are talking to Paul Stevenson.
That's the sound of a tree in Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains, releasing volatile organic compounds, which is just a fancy way of saying it's creating fog. And that makes the Smokies smoky. This is one of many sounds in Tennessee with a story to tell. To hear them in person, plan your trip at tnvacation.com. Tennessee sounds perfect.
Quick question. When was the last time a display ad changed your mind? Now think about the last time a friend told you about something they loved. Different feeling, right? That's how podcast advertising works. A host who's built real trust with their audience talks about your brand in their own words, in their own voice. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It's part of it. With Acast, you can access the world's largest podcast marketplace. Choose the right shows, the right audiences, the right format. Then watch the data tell you it worked. You're not buying impressions. You're buying influence. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.
Hi, everyone. It's Ashley Dupuy here, the in-house therapist on the Neurodivergent Experience and host of Mindful Mondays. And if you've been listening to these podcasts and thinking, gosh, I'd love to explore this work more deeply, I'd love to let you know about what's coming next. This September, I'll be opening a small group coaching cohort, a gentle, supportive space to explore the kind of work we've been doing here together. So if you've been resonating with the From Mask to Map series, or with the deeper themes we've been exploring on Mindful Mondays, this will be a chance to take that work further in community with guidance, reflection, and practical tools to help you understand yourself more clearly and move through life with more ease. So if that speaks to something in you, I'd love to hear from you. You can register your interest by emailing me at integrativeiom@gmail.com, and you can also keep an eye out on integrativeiom.co.uk, where I'll be sharing more details over the coming weeks.
Hi, I'm Sophie James, a neurodivergent mentor with 4 years of experience supporting neurodivergent individuals. As an autistic and ADHD woman myself, I know firsthand what it's like growing up in a neurotypical world and trying to navigate spaces that weren't built with our brains in mind. Whether you're neurodivergent yourself or supporting a neurodivergent child or teen, I offer experience-led peer mentoring grounded in understanding, connection, and neuroaffirming support. Together, we explore strengths, build confidence, and develop practical ways to navigate life while embracing who you are. If you'd like to learn more about my mentoring work, visit sophiejamesndmentoring.com.
Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Experience. Simon here with Jordan as always, but we've been joined by Paul Stevenson, lived experience ambassador at Genius Within, international speaker, award winner, author, advocate. What can't you do, Paul? Well, yeah, we've discussed so much in the first section here, but I would love to know more about your work with Genius Within and the books you've written, Paul.
So, yeah, Genius Within, I found my niche. I really have. It's a shame it's taken so long, and I wish I'd have discovered all this earlier on. Well, things wouldn't have worked out the way they worked out. This is how it is. I should be retiring in about 3 years, and I don't want to retire. I want to carry on. I love my job. I love the work that we do. I love the fact that, we're changing the workplace for people. We're making it more comfortable. And we come across people who might be up for a disciplinary because they're not working to their optimum strengths. And we'll say to the employer, why are you thinking of dismissing them? well, they're not doing what they used to do. And it said, well, this is a person that you employed over maybe 400 other candidates. What's changed? And it's usually not the person, it's the environment. You know, the workplace has moved, they've installed, and the solutions to empowering that individual aren't expensive. You know, noise reducing headphones, you know, maybe moving your desk away from the window. For instance, as an ADHDer, you know, that'd be the worst place to sit me next to a window because it's 1, 2, 3, you're out the room. Boom, gone. And another thing with me, I'm very observant about everything going on around me. So I've always chose to have my back to a wall, you know, because I've got sensory processing issues. And then everything's there in front of me. You know, I've not got to keep looking around as to what. So I'm just mentioning a few little fundamental things that have worked for me. You know, flexible working hours. Right. So when I have a bad tic attack, I can't work. You know, I can't. But I can work at other times. You know, I get some of my best ideas on Sunday night. So I'll put my hours in then. And I've got that flexibility in work. And this is what Genius is all about, is making things work, helping people to find the strengths, support the challenges, because we do have these. We can't deny that we've got challenges. But putting strategies in place to counteract these is a great thing. And then when an employer takes notice and listens and sees the person, the effect on the individual is fantastic, because you want to go that extra mile for your bosses. You know, they've shown compassion, they've shown understanding. Yeah, I can do that job. And, you know, it really works. We've got something called the Genius Finder. And basically it works as an assessment and identifies your strengths, but acknowledges your challenges. But rather than your challenges being a problem, there's solutions to these challenges. And it's personal to each individual, because you can't make a set of rules from one experience of someone with Tourette's to fit other people with Tourette's, because we are all different. You know, we're fingerprint different because of the conditions that we live with. So by me answering questions as to, do you struggle with such and such a thing? Do you find this works for you? Do you find that works for you? I'm answering honestly from my experience with all the conditions I've got. So you get a bespoke readout as to what's going to work for you, what, you know, how to improve things for you, how to make your job more fulfilling, how to be, you know, work it to your optimum. So yeah, it's very fulfilling work. And most of the people I work with are neurodivergent, which is like, it's a blessing. You know, I found my soulmates, and it's more than a job. You know, I feel like I'm in a family. So
that's beautiful,
that's awesome.
man. Is it just Tourette's that people that you're helping, or is it all sorts of neurodivergent people that Genius within?
Yeah, right across. You know, dyspraxic, dyslexia. In fact, notifications keep popping up from one of my friends who I work with to me, and he's dyspraxic. So we interact with a lot of different people.
Yeah, I've got dyspraxia as well,
and it's just like I said, it's more than a job.
It's so nice to hear that. It's I love, because I've ever since I was doing this, I've been doing this for like 6 years, just trying to show people, you know, the good side of neurodivergence, but, you know, acknowledging the disabilities. And I've said it so many times on this podcast, it is like two sides of the same coin. And each day I flick it up and I have no idea what it's going to land on, because I have no idea what sort of a day I'm going to have. You know, I can have a day where, you know, I'm to myself and I'm doing my own thing and I don't feel disabled at all. And then I've said, you know, I'll go and I'll have to do something for work, or I have to go on a train, or I have to go on a bus. And then suddenly I literally feel like the most disabled I've ever felt in my life. And it is literally that flick of a coin. It warms my heart. It really does, to know that there is other people out there with that same mentality, that same idea. And it's literally like, your words are my words. And we've all come up with this individually. It's like, you haven't copied me, I haven't copied you. It's because your lived experience has shown you this is the case. We have the abilities, we have disabilities, and then we can combine them and then help with both. And that's what people need to understand more than anything else. It's wonderful. Genius Within sounds like an absolutely amazing. Are they hiring?
yeah, there's jobs available. It's funny because people says, well, what have you got any examples how it works? So I said 2009, I couldn't leave my front door. I couldn't use public transport. I said 2026, 2025, I'm on a stage in Athens talking to medical professionals about a condition that they've been to university and studied all their life. And I said, and the only reason I'm here, obviously, not solely down to Genius Within, but is because of the support, the strategies that have been put in place, and also coaching, which we do, which I found. So I'd been, what's the other word? I've been to see people before, and they got on a board and saying peaks and troughs, you're about here, Paul, and just, counselling that they were having. It felt like they were ripping open a 30-year-old scar that had healed. So when did this trauma start? How did that start? But with Genius, the coaching sessions are like going for a friendly walk with somebody who we come to a path that's muddy and there's stepping stones, and they went, oh, there's a stepping stone there, Paul. Stepping stone there. And the other illustration I use is what they're like in finding your strengths. Everybody's had that experience at Christmas time, getting the Christmas decorations down from the attic. And you can't do two things at once. You can't hold a torch and get into attic. Well, my coaching sessions were like a friend shining a torch, identifying where things were. Oh, there's your visual thinking. There's your Christmas fairy at top of tree. Do you get the illustration I'm saying? They
absolutely,
guide you. They don't tell you what to do. And if you're anything like me, if I'm told what to do, I don't do what I'm told what to do. But if I'm encouraged
Paul, so you have pathological demand avoidance.
Welcome.
What a shocking revelation.
What a
neurodivergent person
becoming.
with PDA. Yeah. Well, welcome to the neurodivergent experience, everyone. We have everything.
One of the things that you were just saying there, Paul, reminded me. I've very recently just done an interview on a podcast called The Late Diagnosis Club, which talks about people's late diagnosis stories, whether self-diagnosis or official, if somebody's let us know what we are. And the interviewer always finishes with, what advice would you give? And my advice was, find an elder.
Yeah.
Find somebody who's been doing this lived experience with knowledge longer than you have. Yeah. And learn from them and let them show you the way and let them, almost like be a Jedi to you and guide you and give you that, exactly what you were just saying. Let them hold the torch for you so that you can find your own way.
Yeah. No, and it's it's perfect. Right. So I do suffer from anxiety. It's in my life all the time, and it's going to be there. We don't need to know where that anxiety's come from, but we need to know how is it affecting you today. Let's see what it is. Do you know anxiety is not a bad thing, Paul? And I went, oh well, I remember like freezing mid thing, and he said it's just there to dot the I's and cross the T's, just to make sure that we get things right. So my attitude to it went from being enemy, putting me into fight and flight, to me not being afraid of it anymore. Don't freeze when your anxiety kicks in. Just think about, right, I've got that. Thank you very much, anxiety. I've got that covered. I did bring my laptop with me. Thank you very much. And so, viewing it differently and just so you think, well, it's not an entity, is it? But no, it's not an entity, but it's not nothing to be frightened of in the sense of just shutting down completely. So I stopped fearing my anxiety. And that were a coaching session. And I've got to say, within about 20 minutes of being in that coaching session, I'd come to that conclusion because they were showing me the stepping stones. Well, just step over here, step over there. And it was brilliant. I mean, I'm biased because I work there, but it's worked for me. It's got me from, the biggest step of my life with a doorstep to international travel now. So I'm off to Slovenia to an international conference in June. Yeah, I do get upset, worried about travel, but what it makes me do now is dot the I's and cross the T's, because I make sure that I've got assistance at the airport. I make sure every eventuality is covered. And then I've got that peace of mind to think, right, let's just enjoy the experience. You know,
Do you take your camera? Do you go and do photography when you go and do these traveling places?
my phone. I mean, I've got my camera's Canon 70D, and it's quite.
I had a 77D.
Yeah, well, it's quite heavy, and you know you've got restrictions when you're traveling abroad, so I just use my phone.
I don't think I've gone anywhere without all my equipment in one. I have a long lens. I take it everywhere,
One
man.
pair of pants, but all his cameras.
That's it, yeah. And
yeah, literally, yeah.
So what I did, I mentioned these weekend retreats that we had that were put on workshops, and I wanted to share, in part, that piece that I got from being creative to the young people who came to the event. So I put together a workshop called Capturing Creativity. The first time I did it, technology's moved on, so we were using all my cameras, and I was giving these cameras to young people with Tourette syndrome and ADHD, and thinking, that's nearly £1,000 worth of a camera.
Jesus.
I was just about to say, I hope you've got insurance.
Yeah, I'll be like,
I'm like, this isn't going to work out in the long run. But the idea behind the workshop was, so we get them all together, and this is featured in the movie, actually. It's a part that I play in the movie, is for them to start noticing their environment when they go out. Take pictures of what they want to take pictures of. No one's going to judge. No one's image is going to be rubbish, because no one's going to judge what image you take. You're taking that image for you. You're being creative. Don't just stand there head high and click. Roll around floor. Look at the smallest objects that you can. And I showed them an example of, I went out one day and I had an idea of capturing a barn owl, and I knew there were one on the farm near where I lived. But as I walked up, I stopped and I just pondered, and I looked at the stone wall, and there were moss on the stone wall, and there were moss spores coming out of the moss, and they're like so tiny. And one of these moss spores had a drop of water on it because it had been raining, and it was like looking into another world. I actually didn't notice the countryside. I went beyond that. I saw the countryside. I felt the countryside, and I thought, right, so what we're going to do with this workshop, I get everybody there and I say, do you remember when you were little and your mum and dad used to take you to the chip shop? And you'd be stood there looking at this big counter, smelling all the things that were going on. What magic spells are being cast behind that counter? And you always you had that wonderment, didn't you, of the height that you were, seeing things that were possibly higher than you. And you looked at the world with different eyes, with different perspectives. And I said, that's what I want you to do today. Just do what you want to do. Whatever idea comes into your head, you do it. And as time's gone on, we've done it with a phone now, because you can get an editing system. We use Snapseed. I use Snapseed in the workshop. And it's only a simple one. And you can take photographs, and you can edit, and you can have the final result within the workshop. And that works perfectly for us ADHDers, because, we're not hanging around for post to deliver photographs that we took last week.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I've got Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop Express on my phone. It's literally how when I started taking pictures, that's all I was using, was just those like apps on my phone. And I don't even use like detailed tools on my laptop. I actually normally transfer everything to my tablet, and I do it that way.
Yeah.
So, like, once I got used to a certain way of doing things, and I just edit everything on my tablet now, because I get the little pen and I can touch things and I can create things. And it's so good for your mental health.
Best thing about that workshop is then you give it as a tool. It's for them to use now. And I use the example that I go on trains. I've got photographs that I've taken that I decide not to edit until I'm travelling. And once I start travelling, a 4-hour journey by train to London ends up next to no time, because I've picked these pictures up. The creativity's kicked in. I'm not ticking. Nobody's bothered about me. Going into the airports, it's really stressful. There's a lot going on. But, if I've got this strategy in place, then I suggest to the young people, why don't you use this when you're, having to travel, when you're feeling under pressure? Because that creativity. And another thing I say to them is, don't delete photographs on your first viewing.
That's what I always tell people. Don't think that it's crap.
Yeah.
Just you don't know.
You're looking at it.
You can come back to it later.
Yeah.
And then you're suddenly like, oh, do you know what? I actually really do like that photo.
Because you're looking at it with the most critical eye. And the whole point of the exercise is not to be critical about yourself.
Yeah. Don't compare yourself to others.
This is why I never edit episodes as soon as I've recorded them. I always sleep on them and come to them the next day with fresh ears, not eyes, but
Yeah,
I relate to that a lot.
So things that the photography has paid off. It's been a gift in many ways. You know, the first thing that got me out the house. It was the first thing that helped me to discover that creativity plays a big part for respite from Tourette syndrome and obviously my ADHD. I'm getting dopamine hits because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And then being able to make it into a workshop. And I've done that internationally. And like I say, it was featured in the film. And it's a great tool for the young people. You know, I'll do it as an icebreaker at work if we're doing a conference. So the instructions are, so we're all meeting up at certain place for this conference. What I would like you to do is observe your environment as you're walking along. Take photographs with your phone. And then when we get into the workshop area, I'd love you to explain what captured your attention. I'd love you to explain what that image says to you. And then when they edit them, there's another story comes out of it as well. And, you know, the things that people have done. So this lady who I work with, she took a picture of a load of pebbles. And she said, I don't know why I took a picture of pebbles. It's pretty boring. I went, no, they're not. I said, you're a graphic designer. I said, you can see patterns. You can see shades, you know, where somebody would see chaos and nothing. You can spot other things. So, you know, yeah, really. Book report. There we go. I forgot what I was saying now.
No, it's great. What I was going to say was, what was it like working on the film on the set? Like, for me, like I know that. I mean, I've watched it so many times now. I know that scene with you in it because it spoke a lot to me. Because when you see John doing the thing in the community centre with all the kids and stuff, and I was like, I've literally done that exact thing. You know, I've done these talks with these families and then I did photography workshops at local gardens. I used to go around and I used to, show kids how to take pictures and stuff. And it was wonderful, actually, because I put it on Facebook and a whole bunch of random strangers sent me cameras for free to use on this, for my workshop. It was an amazing wonder. Like, people were so generous. So I had this bag of cameras that I was able to just give them out to all these kids, and they went around taking all these pictures, and it was so much fun. And I haven't done it for a while now. I just haven't had the spoons. I haven't had the energy, but it's definitely something that I want to start up again as soon as that is there. But obviously that bit in the film really spoke to me when I see you showing these kids photography, and I'm like, oh my God, that's literally me. So you were me in the movie. I felt so connected to you. I felt very connected to John in that movie for everything he's been through. I felt so similar. But that bit with you with the cameras, I was like, hey. So that's when I found out that I could interview you from the movie that I love so much. Oh, I was so excited. And you've been amazing, by the way. Like you've been like 10 million times
this has been such an
more than I
incredible
could
chat.
ever imagine, because it was just that little bit in that movie. And then, you're just an amazing human. You really are.
So I'm going to say, people have said to me, how did you get into acting? I said, well, it's not really acting, it's a cameo role. But I went, nepotism. I said, isn't that the
only way?
There is that.
He's my best mate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, pretty please, John, I'd love to. No, I mean, I'm in the book, but the book, obviously, it goes beyond what the movie does. But I think the movie, getting onto the subject of the movie, is just like, wow. I heard about the project. John said, this guy, he's called Kurt. I went, I've heard of Kurt Jones. Yeah, oh, wow. Nanny McPhee fame, And I'm like, so what's the plan? And he's telling me the plan. They're going to call it I Swear. And I'm like, ooh, that's going to upset people. But no, because in the movie, he says, I swear I've got Tourette syndrome. I swear that I'm not doing it on purpose. And I'm like, how's it going to work? who are they going to get to act, do your part? And then I got a phone call saying, do you want to do a Zoom with Robert Arameo? He wants to find out as much about John as possible. So I thought he's going to ask me, tell me some of John's tics. And he went, I'm not, he said, I am curious about the tics and the mechanics behind it, but what I'm more curious about is the other stuff, the co-occurring things that John has, his OCD, his anxiety. They're the things that I want to get into and look at. And I knew right away, I thought, this is the guy for the job, because he's seen beyond the tics. You know, he's seen to the things that drag us down, you know, portraying how he feels after he's been bullied, the anxiety before doing something. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. You know, like all that. And then it was so inclusive. You know, over 30 of the actors live with Tourette syndrome. All the associations in the UK, Tourette's Action, Tic Hull, Tourette Scotland, they were all consulted. They all played a big part in advising. And Rob himself went and stayed with John over a 3-month period. Visiting him, not staying in his house, but, you know, living in Galashiels.
So he was stalking him like you were.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't going to do it.
He said to me, how do I get to know John? I went, stalk him, but don't take his
Stalking,
yeah.
I have to admit, Paul, just something that I wanted to just add here. Somebody who has acting experience and has been on film sets, I can imagine it was an unusual environment to find yourself in. It's very strange. But one of my favourite acting choices that Robert Arameo makes, and I think Kirk Jones did an incredible job with the direction, is how John sees himself in the mirror throughout the film and how he views himself. And that first time he's in Dottie's house and he smashes the mirror and the look of anguish on his face, to then how he ends up viewing himself later on in that film. It moves me so much.
Good.
It's incredible.
I know. I mean, when I were on set, I had my own little trailer. And I think 2 weekends on the trot to the end of the movie of filming. And I kept hearing John go, hey! And I'm like, John, I'm over here. John didn't come. Anyway, it weren't John, it was Rob. He's a method actor. So
you can see that.
We didn't have anything to do with him whatsoever. Couldn't see him, couldn't speak to him, because he became John through the whole entirety of that movie. I spoke to his dad and I said, how's he gone on afterwards? He said, well, the tics lingered on a bit, you know, because they became habit. And he said, he's straining his neck and different things. And he said, you know, it must be impossible to live with that condition. So he became John Davidson, you know. And so when I were coming on set, Rob went off set. You know, I got some interaction with the other actors. Maxine Peake, absolutely fantastic. Love her to bits. Me and John are sat outside and she says, can I come and sit with you two handsome chaps? And I went, a rose between two piles of horse shit. And, you know, like a rose between two thorns. And she goes, I know you lads from TV. I'm like, okay. Just so down to earth and captured the essence of Dottie to a T.
Yeah,
I mean,
she was amazing.
You mean, it's like people have said, how do you think she did? I said, she were Dottie. That's how Dottie's like, you know, so compassionate and beyond giving. She'll go that extra mile, you know, like, this lad needs help. Well, I'll tell you what, let's move him into our house, you know, and it's, yeah.
Dottie's, like, her story, and I can only go from it, but from the movie, seeing Dottie in the movie, I literally said to my wife, I was like, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I met my wife, like, my parents did abuse me. My dad neglected me. My mother and we won't even go there. I had a really horrible childhood. And then just as I was sort of getting to the point where I was going to move out and I was going to move in with my older brother, because he was the only person that was ever there for me. He unfortunately was killed in a motorbike accident, and it just spiraled me. And I literally, you know, the scene where John goes in the water to do what he wanted, that I literally did that because I didn't want to be around anymore. And then I met Sylvia, I met my wife, and she could see past all the hard shell that I had covered myself in. I'd covered myself in all this like almost like clay just to keep everyone away. Like no one could see the real me. But she saw through that. And she saw through that because it later turns out she is also neurodivergent. She could see the real me. So when I saw Dot doing the same thing for John, it just spoke to me so much, because it's so often that's all we need is somebody to give us a chance and see beyond the whatever you like to call it, whether it's a condition or a disorder or whatever you have, any neurodivergence you have that you might see as negative. People, if they can see past that, it will change your life. And you're changing people's lives in that way.
Wouldn't it have been amazing to have a Dottie in our lives when we were younger? You know?
I think everybody listening to this needed a Dottie at some point.
Yeah. I mean, my Dottie didn't come till I married Carol, because like what you were just talking about your parents, I mean, I was punished because of my neurodivergence. You know, I grew up being told that I was lazy, and all those negative labels, when you don't have a diagnosis, you don't have an understanding, those negative labels stick with you. You believe them yourself.
Well, they become part of you, don't they? You identify with them.
I'm a sinner because I say and do things that God doesn't like. You know, the laziness thing came from 18 months into a job. I got bored, and that's all it were.
We literally talked about this on the last episode, this thing called bore out. So you have burnout and you have bore out. And bore out is literally caused by boredom. And it means you're not doing enough. You're not stimulating yourself enough. And it actually has the same symptoms as burnout, which is caused by doing too much stuff. So it's a really good episode.
The other one I got labelled with is, because you're lazy, you always find the easiest way to do something. And I'm like,
isn't that just sensible?
Do you know what Bill Gates said in the beginning of his book? I hire lazy people. They find the quickest and best ways to do things.
Yeah. I'm be great at time and motion, because it's like, why am I crossing that corridor 3 or 4 times when I could actually do it in 2 times? While I'm taking something away, I could be bringing something back. And my dad used to say, if there's an easy way to do it, Paul will find it because he's lazy. And I lived those labels. I believed them that I was lazy. And this is why, you know, we're pushing for early diagnosis, early intervention. So I went to Parliament last year and I spoke in front of MPs and I said, we need to tip the education system on its head. Because why? I said, because it's not working.
Oh God, yeah. I've been saying this for 5 years now. It's the education system isn't good enough to wipe your arse with. It's absolute shite. It's so honed on like just like a factory, just chucking out kids and not individualizing them.
How do we propose to do it? Well, why don't we empower them? And rather than giving them SATs, that the result of that is that you're not really succeeding in this. And that nothing's being done. Well, why not give them a positive assessment, cognitive assessment? You know, the one that I got, and the ones that we do at Genius Within. Why don't we do that for every 12-year-old and find out what the strengths are? Why don't we empower them by letting them know what the strengths are, educate them to the strengths, set them on the right trajectory to success, rather than what's happening now is that we're not good enough, we don't feel good enough, we're told we're not good enough, and we're slipping underneath the radar. And I'm like, yeah, but what's in it for us? I went, a smaller prison population. People in employment, fulfilled employment that they enjoy doing, paying taxes, buying cars. You know, that's what's in it for you, because these are all the things that it's going to solve. Unemployment, you know, the prison's overloaded by neurodivergent people who wasn't shown respect, wasn't shown understanding when they were younger. So, you know, that's the message that I want to put forward. Why? And I think that's why we're all of value, is because our experience in life we don't want anybody else to go through what we went through, you know.
Literally, that is my whole reason for doing everything I do on social media and this podcast, is to make people realize that they're not alone, and to empower us to be able to advocate for ourselves. Because the more of us do what we do, the better it is for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I said to you, didn't I, Jordan, when I pitched the idea of this show all those years ago, I said I want to make something that I could have listened to 5 years ago that would have changed my life.
Yeah.
Literally.
Something resonates with it.
What we try and stick with constantly is, would this have helped me 5-10 years ago? Would little Simon have listened to this and felt good about himself? That's what we've got to keep sticking with.
I mean, at the moment, we're in a situation where we're trying to fix broken adults, people who haven't been acknowledged as being neurodiverse and made to feel wrong and punished for manifesting traits of our condition, and had to mask, and you get tired. I was in the mental health system for a long, long time, not knowing what was wrong. And now, you know, why do we have to? Let's set them on that right trajectory from that age, and then we'll have less work to do mending broken adults. And I think that's the future. And a lot of it with me is aimed at younger people. Also, you know, people around my age who are just getting diagnosed. I'm there for them. But someone said to me, "What is the best age to educate children about Tourette syndrome?" And I went, "I think before they go to school." And they went, "How does that work?" And I said, "Well," and I thought, hang on, I've got something here. Why do I want to write a preschool book about someone who's got Tourette syndrome, someone who the kids had recognise, and a book that makes people not want to be frightened? So I remember being in town with my children when they were young, and I was ticking uncontrollably. And a guy sheltered his own children from me. And I'm like, mate, I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat. Go away. Stay behind daddy. And I thought, from that day on now, those children will be frightened of someone who's got Tourette syndrome. So I thought, right, let's educate our children before they pick up any prejudice off mum or dad or any other school, any other children in school. So I decided to write a story about a young child called Jamie who's got Tourette syndrome. And Jamie's happy to acknowledge that people notice his tics, acknowledges the fact that some of his tics can be humorous, but also wants the other children to acknowledge that it's not easy having Tourette syndrome and it's painful, and to show his resilience and not to be afraid of him, because he's a great team player. He's got a fantastic imagination. He's got loads and loads of empathy. And I wanted to set this, and I thought, right, so I'm a visual thinker. The images were coming to me. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in rhyme, because when I was a kid, I'd always remember things in rhyme, a singy song sort of thing. So that's where the idea for the book, My Tics and Me, came from. And then on the back of that, I thought, my busy brain and me. What? And so the second story's been written. It's just waiting to be published. And it's about a young Indian boy called Krish, who is a great team player. Krish is a great one to have in your group at school when you're doing projects, because he thinks out the box. He's got a great imagination. You'll never be bored being with Krish. But you'll notice sometimes Krish, when he's sat by the window, will disappear into his own world, and he'll forget things and stuff like that. And what I've done as well, in the back of both the books, I've put down tips for teachers, because I thought it's going to be preschool teachers who will be reading this. So, right, I've got an understanding of Tourette syndrome, but I want the book for them to go, oh, and this is how I can help. This is what I can do to make Krish or Jamie's classroom experience better. So they are educational books, but they're also a great little storybook. I wish every preschool around the world would have them, because you think about it, you read that in preschool, then you go to secondary school, and you're about 11 or 12, you notice someone in your class who's ticking. And you went, oh, do you know something? I read a story about a little boy called Jamie who had tics. And right away, the connections are, there's no barrier like, ooh, what's he doing? Why are they making that noise? Why is she jumping about? So that's the idea behind the book. And I got a grant from Genius Within's subsidiary company called Blooming Genius. And that grant allowed me to buy 300 books, and I gifted 100 to each association in the UK. So that's Tourette's Action, Tourette's Scotland, and Tourette's Hull. Now, one of those books in Scotland got into the hands of a lovely lady called Lindsay, and she read it to her daughter called Grace, who had been newly diagnosed, and not come to terms with why she's ticking. Why am I doing this? Why is this happening? And after reading that book, it helped her to come to terms with her condition. But you know, the first thing she thought about doing, she took it into school. You know, you would get a lot of not necessarily bullying, but you get a lot of unwanted attention. And she saw the effect that it had on her classmates and the effect it had on her. And you know what she said to her mum? Mum, can I buy loads of these books and give it to every school where we live? Oh, how are we going to do that? I said, well, if I sell sweeties to my friends at school, I can raise money to buy these books. Anyway, she's done it. Not just in her town, in the whole county of Renfrewshire in Scotland. 8-year-old. Oomph.
That is unbelievable.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Oh,
yeah, I'm getting a bit tippy. The glasses are steaming up. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah,
kids are just like, especially neurodivergent kids. They can just so surprise people, and I think that's it. It just shows the empathy levels that we have that we're told that we don't have, and it's so the opposite. And I do see that, you know, with kids, is that they're so pure, and then life just crushes them, and I just don't. We don't want that to happen. So that's why one of my favorite things has been going into schools and doing talks and showing them my photography. And I also had a very similar idea of, and I told my publisher this with my book, is that I wanted to see it on the desk of every head teacher of every school, because it starts with the head teacher, because they make the policies, they can make the change within their school. And when I was doing school talks, literally head teachers were getting me to bring the book in, and seeing that book on their table was a dream come true. So yeah, we just got to keep plugging away, I guess.
What still sticks out to me is that, you know, reading the book, Grace read the book, this has really helped me, thank you very much, now I can get on with my life. No, this is going to help other children. Thinking of that empathy and compassion, to instantly think about helping other people. Yeah. That, you know, I talk about it. I did an interview at work the other day about it, and someone said to me, yeah, but if you hadn't written that book. And I went, listen, all I did and all I'm doing all my life, it's not about me. It's not about what I've done. It's about how many doors I've opened for people to walk through the cells. Because if you're helping and assisting people, right, you don't have to be a massive, big, flamboyant display of, well, I went up to this person and I bought them a meal and I paid the rent for 3 weeks. And basically, I just opened the door and they walked through that door that were closed to them. And I know that we've been going on a long while, but I want to give you an example of the difference you can make without making a big hoo-ha about it. So I was on Twitter when it was useful, and I had timelines running, Tourette timelines. And this one lady went on, she said, I'm at the end of my tether. My husband's a fire chief in the town we live in. We got quite established in the town, our family. But my son is getting mercilessly bullied because of his Tourette syndrome. And there is nobody to help, nobody near, no support groups. So I replied to her, I said, hi, I live in the UK. I don't know much about support groups in America, but I'm here to listen. Please talk to me. So as she was talking to me, it came up whereabouts that they lived in America. And whilst she was talking, I started corresponding with a friend of mine, Miles, who lives in Philly, who's got Tourette syndrome. And I asked Miles, I said, is there any Tourette support groups? They call them chapters in America. In this part of Vermont, it was where they were, quite rural. And it turned out that there was a support group 4 minutes away. And I give her the details of the support group. And it went on, it went past, and I hadn't forgot about it, but, you know, I was just happy to do such a little thing. And then I got a call off her saying, I just want to thank you. My son now is doing he's graduated, he's doing awareness talks in schools and colleges to help people educate about that. And she said, thank you so. I went, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I just heard you, saw you, and, this door needs opening. And that were it. You know, they did all the hard work. He did all the hard work. He overcame that anxiety. He realised that, you know, people started to see him for who he was, and he had that power. And this is, if it's something to finish off on, I encourage everybody. Everybody's got a voice, right? They might not think people listen to him. Everybody's got a story. Your story might only resonate with one or two people. But if you can support or change the life of one person, then you've done a good job. You know, and
exactly.
If it means that someone's walking in with luggage and metaphorically walking in with baggage and stuff and they can't get through the door, it's no great effort. Just pull that lever down, just open that door and say, there you go. And, you know, that's how I live my life. I live by those policies. So whilst on a bigger scale, talking to an audience of 100, 200 people, being in a movie, being in a documentary that reaches hundreds and hundreds of people, and never forget that there's one person out there who might need your help, and I never walk past that person. You know, I don't think, oh no, I just do conferences, I do online stuff. I'll please talk to me, you know, ask me questions, you know, and it keeps me grounded. You know, it's not like, oh, you're fantastic, Paul, here's a medal. You know, I'm not fantastic, you know, by far, but I've got certain things that I possess, and I can make a difference. And if it's just one person's life that it's been benefited, then job done.
Yeah, you can pay it forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Paul. You're such an inspiration, and I'm sure there'll be so many people that will listen to this that will learn so much about themselves and what they can achieve and where they can go. And I'll make sure that Genius Within and the links to your books are all within our show notes so that anybody can go and check out the brilliant work that you are doing, and it truly, truly is brilliant. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I get a bit choked up there. Hey.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Paul. Honestly, for me, it was just this fleeting thought of I'd love to be able to meet this person one day. And the fact that it actually happened because of social media, which is not always my best friend, but in this case, it has helped me. I do have a bit of clout, apparently. I've still got a bit of clout. But yeah,
birds of a feather flock together. They do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we find each other if we're in the right mind. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping this won't be our last interaction, and we can definitely build on this because, like I said, we all need to do this together and work as a community to help others.
Fish cakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this has
Spunk
been
for milk, Spunk for milk.
This has been our interview with Paul Stevenson. Paul, thank you so much. We will be back with another episode next week of the Neurodivergent Experience. Please go back and listen to a couple of other our episodes.
Will do.
You might learn something about yourself. That's everything from us. Take care, everybody. Be kind, be safe.
Thank you very much, guys.
Nightly bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Neurodivergent Experience. We hope today's episode sparks something for you, whether it's a new idea, a bit of validation, or just a moment of connection. Remember, new episodes are every week, so be sure to join us for the next one for more conversations and insights into the neurodivergent experience. If you've enjoyed this podcast, help us grow. You can do that by rating and reviewing this show. Your support makes a huge difference in helping us reach more people who could benefit from these conversations. You can connect with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Just search for the Neurodivergent Experience. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself, You're not alone in this journey.
Here's a tip for you. There's a podcast out there with fans waiting to be your next customer. They tune in every week, they trust the host, and that host wants to talk about brands like yours in their own words to their audience. The problem is, you just haven't been introduced yet. We're Acast, where that introduction happens. As the world's largest podcast marketplace, we let you browse shows, see who's listening, and book host-read sponsorships or run your own ads, all from one platform. Transparent pricing, real-time data, complete control. Start advertising on podcasts by visiting acast.com/advertise.